seem a little, not quite what you would expect. Of course, they were educated at Cambridge, I believe, and really they should have been to Oxford.
Oh, you think so?
Should they have the correct background and growth. As I was saying to Lady Beaumont the other day.
These posh people. Well, let's get back to Monty Python. Make ready for another marvellous episode of the mythical Monty Python and his flying circus. I think the one thing about Monty Python's flying circus is that the humour is typically English and a little bit subtler on the whole, perhaps, than the American variety. Also, a lot of it leaves you wondering, I wonder just what they meant by that. But then the British are like that. There's the famous tale about the pub owner whose pub was called the Five Bells. And when asked what he should do to attract a lot of people, he was told, well, just hang 4 bells outside, because curiosity being what it is, nobody could resist the temptation to go in and find out why there were 4 bells and not 5 hung there. I think also that the humour of Monty Python is such that they start off completely seriously, absolutely seriously, and then suddenly you find that they're in utter idiocy, quite without knowing where or why, which shows the difference between sanity and madness is a hair's breadth, or is it even that? You should know about tonight's episode that the gas company in question is run by the British government. It's nationalised and is famous for its bureaucracy and bungling. With that little hint then, why not watch this marvellous episode of Monty Python's Flying Circus?
Hey lad, I just heard as how they're going to be showing pythons on American television.
Is that
I
so?
really don't believe it. And someone told me that that's the one that's going to do it.
That's right.
City, that's going to make a difference over there. Ruin the Americans' way of life, I shouldn't wonder. It's a greatly show, though.
Let's go back to the pythons. Welcome to Monty Python. Shakespeare has said that a man in his life plays many parts. Well, it seems as though British actors play many parts all in the same play. If you've ever seen Peter Sellers or Alec Guinness, you will have noticed that they can play 5 or 6 different roles all in the same performance. I think this is perhaps due to the fact that the British system promotes this. I can recall when I was a child that they put on a different play every night with our repertory company at home. And the Pythons are continuing this tradition because they can take the parts of women, old men, young men, you name it, all in the same play. Well, do you have a cat? Is that cat tired and listless? If so, we're going to show you how to do something about it. You have to learn how to confuse your cat like this. Then it will regain its interest in life. If you want to see more about this, why don't you watch the next episode of Monty Python, Confuse a Cat Limited.
Hello, where's Elaine gone to?
I sent him off just a few minutes ago to Mrs. Ilow's with all the washing, and now he's vanished. I think he's got lost in a Chinese cookie factory. I don't know where he is. Good grief, caught, chased me and fanny round the guessworks. Do you know why a hairdresser should be pitied? Ah, I'm sure you don't. She should be pitied when she curls up and dies. Well, who am I, other than a complete nut, that is to say? Every English child would know that I was the Widow Twankey out of the pantomime Aladdin and His Wonderful Lamp. Round about Christmas time, everybody in England goes to the panto, children particularly. But pantomime there is nothing like mime in this country, the sort of white face, visual thing with no speech. In England, pantomime is simply a vehicle for having fun on the stage. And there are a number of stock pantomimes. There's Aladdin, of course, Cinderella, everybody knows about that, Puss in Boots, Dick Whittington and his famous cat. Dick Whittington, of course, was the Lord Mayor of London, or ultimately became Lord Mayor of London. And then there's the Babes in the Woods and Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves. There's always a problem on stage with Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves because you never have more than about 6 thieves on hand at any one time. So they walk across the stage and then go back around again. Well, the thing about pantomime is it has also a number of very fixed characters. Of course, there is the principal boy and the principal girl, a hero and heroine. The only thing is that the principal boy is a girl. It's invariably a good-looking young lady, dressed up, of course, as a man. And then there is another stock character, the dame. The dame, in the case of Aladdin, was the person I endeavored to portray, the Widow Twankey. And as you can see, it's always a man. And the most famous comedians in England have, at some stage or another, almost invariably played the dame in pantomime. It's considered to be a great honor. I often wonder what psychologists in this country must think of all that, the dame being a man and the principal boy being a girl. But it never bothers the English at all. It's such an accepted part of growing up that nobody ever even thinks about it. I wonder. Well, anyway, I can apologize for that. And now you are going to see the apology program on Monty Python.
Oh, wasn't that a lovely program? Personally, I always found Jean-Paul Sartre's book, Roads to Freedom, rather difficult. But I agreed with Mrs. Premise that it's a desire for all of us to avoid action rather than an allegory of man's search for commitment. Those char ladies know what we mean by that. Well, next we have the fish slapping dance. I've always heard about fish and chips, but what's a fish slapping dance?
The ball, like you do in baseball, it has to be bowled like that. The arm must go over the shoulder. Then again, the ball has to strike the ground before it reaches the batsman. And now for something completely different. It struck me that most of you that have managed to stay up and stay awake this late are probably suffering from insomnia. So prepare to receive some really soothing thoughts. First of all, lie back and make sure that you're making a deliberate effort to relax. Stretch out and wiggle each toe independently, stretching each toe and wiggling it, and then relax your whole foot and your leg. Imagine with the golf clubs and her husband golfing, and underneath it is the American husband. And the American husband is the one who's carrying the golf clubs and the umbrella while his wife is playing. Well, I somehow think that attitudes have changed considerably since those days. The date on that one is, in fact, 1905. More recently, during World War II, there was a mass deluge of Americans on England, and that led to a lot of cartoons and comedy as the British looked at the Americans and their way of life. For example, there is this one which dates back to 1942, and the caption reads, "They won't let on who the camp is for." But if you look at it, you can pretty well guess. And then over here we have a GI sitting by the side of the road and his upturned truck writing back, "Dear Mama." In England, they drive on the left side of the road. And below it, there was a lot of traffic across the Atlantic by sea. And here we have a showboat traveling over there, coming over to entertain the Americans. Or some cartoon, it shows the coach tearing round the corner on the curve with this tremendous drop underneath it down to the station, and the driver is saying to the terrified GI there, "Now, I bet this makes you homesick for Dead Man's Gulch." And below it here, it's all right. I expect they tell them that over here we drive on the left with this gigantic truck coming along. The last one that took my fancy is an older one from 1947, this one. It shows somebody I take to be Sir Walter Raleigh, obviously suffering from having smoked his first pipe, and saying, "Personally, I can't see that there'll ever be the slightest demand for this stuff in the old country." Well, now we go back to Monty Python and a mad scene about the moronic brain surgeons. And jello and something to make it spongy. And to me, it tastes like nothing at all. But of course, you can add flavor to it to make it flavorful. There are a lot of weird English. In the North Country where I come from, there is tripe. Tripe and onions is the favorite dish. And tripe, of course, is the cow's intestines, which looks rather like a honeycomb. Honeycomb tripe is cooked for about 2 days with milk, and then the onions are added, and after you cooked it for 2 days, it becomes quite edible. Then there are trotters, which are cooked pig's feet, and, oh yes, then there's black puddings, very black puddings they're called. They're a mixture of blood and bran put into a sausage. Some of the dishes sound awful but taste quite good. The most obvious one is toad in the hole, and toad in the hole is sausage placed in Yorkshire pudding, which is a savoury batter pudding. Well, now back to Monty Python, where we're going to see how England is taken over by a blancmange from outer space that turns everybody into Scotsmen. So, a Scotsman finally won Wimbledon, and there I thought it was a Swede. But the popular game amongst the older set in England is bowls. Now, this is nothing like the game of 10 pins played in bowling alleys in this country. There are a lot of towns called Bowling Green, but all the bowling greens vanished long ago. In England, it's a very popular game played on a lawn about 20 yards square, I would say, with round balls, slightly elongated, something like this. In the south of England, you play on a completely flat lawn called a flat green. In the north of England, which is where it rains a lot more, you have to play on a crown green. The green has a bump in the middle, and this is absolutely necessary because otherwise the lawn wouldn't drain and you'd be playing on a sea of mud. But of course it makes the game more difficult. It was originally popularized by Sir Francis Drake, a famous Englishman who, it is reputed, was playing bowls on Plymouth Hoe as the Armada came by. And instead of dropping everything and dashing off, he said, "Let them wait, I'm going to finish my game of bowls." And he did, or so the tale goes anyway. Probably is true, actually. The bowls themselves have a weight at one side, which makes them move in a slightly curved trajectory. And the objective of the game is to get as close to a jack as possible. Now, here we have a picture of bowls as I was playing it this summer at Brighton in the south of England. So that's a flat green, and as you can see, you pick up the bowl and roll it towards the little white jack, which has been bowled first. And the person who gets his bowl as close to the jack as possible is the one that wins. Normally it's 2 or 4 people that are playing at one time. Okay, well, let's see how I can do.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the Royal Albert Hall in London, the BBC is proud to present an all-Beethoven program starring Miss Alicia Della Ropo.
Well, I always thought a lot of his execution, and now for something completely different.